and welcome to Cyber Therapy. I am your host, Ashleigh Lee from Jupiter One, and with me is a wonderful Cyber Therapy alumna, Jennie Duong. Woo!
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Ash, for having me on here. It's been a very long time, and I think you pointed out that I've never actually been on this podcast with you.
Correct. This is
So,
our first time actually doing it together, so I am super pumped. Um, and so, yeah, you want to reintroduce yourself, I guess, to the
yeah,
audience?
absolutely. So, my name is Jennie Duong. I am the head of marketing at Viso Trust, which is an AI-powered third-party cyber risk management platform. And before then, I was actually part of Jupiter One and an alumna on cyber therapy as well.
Yes, so she has been a great contributor to the history of cyber therapy, where we get to talk to cybersecurity professionals and get to peek into their minds, get to understand some of the soft skills that have gotten them to where they are today. And so this season, we've been talking a lot about communication and teamwork. Last season, we talked about burnout, just different cyber entryways into cybersecurity, had a whole host of characters. So definitely check out our history at jupiter1.com/cyber-therapy. So with that, I think we can just dive in today. I mean, honestly, I am still coming out of my cocoon post RSA because last week we were all in San Francisco. So how are you feeling post RSA, Jennie?
I mean, I am exhausted, but also relieved. I think that RSA was maybe my sixth RSA in my career. So I've been part of the cybersecurity sort of community from like analyst and researcher all the way into cybersecurity marketing for almost 12 years now, or over 12 years now. And of those years, I've been to RSA at least 6 times. And, this time I came in as a head of marketing with my own team, showcased at the early stage expo with Viso Trust, and I was extremely excited, very, very happy. But a lot of work goes into those events as a marketer. And shout out to all of my cybersecurity marketers, because I know that everyone was working all the way up until the day that they had to showcase and the day that it started. But yeah, overall, I'm just relieved that we wrapped up. I think it was a fantastic experience. Met a lot of really fantastic people this year, and I think this is the first year that RSA is back in full flux. Like the
Yep.
last couple of years has been totally different.
Yeah, I think they had like 30 to 40,000 people in attendance this year. So
Yeah,
definitely the COVID scare is a thing of the past at this point.
I
I think
know.
everybody, I mean, we had some people wearing masks and being like, conscious of it. But for the most part, everybody's just milling around like it was pre
Yeah.
COVID days.
Yeah, I'd heard the head count of around 38,000 attendees, and that's mind blowing to me because when we went last year, I think that it was maybe 20 to 25,000
Yep, that's pretty
versus
light.
it is. And then the year before that was virtual, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. And
So yeah, unlike you, I've only been to, I think, five RSAs. 4 or 5 RSAs.
that's
So
still a
well,
lot.
I'm a little bit behind you, but usually it's in the event management fashion. So this was like this year and last year were like the 2 years where I'm like, wow, I don't have to handle all the details because we've got a great director of global events, Val, who does all of that now.
Oh, yeah.
So I
She
got to
makes
come.
everything.
Oh yeah, she makes it easy for everybody to support the event in their capacity. Um, so yeah, I mean RSA, it was pretty toast, but I still went to New York after because I went to go see a concert where we saw Radwimps, and they're the band that makes the music for a couple of anime movies called Your Name and Weathering with
Oh,
You and Suzume. And I bought one of the vinyls for my friend because he really wanted the vinyl for Suzume. So, and they're only available at their concerts. So
that's
for right now,
amazing.
anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I love the soundtrack from Your Name, so I didn't know that you were going to see them in New York. That's fantastic.
yes, and they played some of the like obviously very uh memorable songs. Basically, if you go on Spotify or Apple Music, like whatever is the most popular songs, like they definitely played those. So,
Yeah.
um but yeah, definitely I think I needed a change of pace and scenery after RSA.
Mhm.
Ate my
Yeah.
way through New York, and I think that was the way that I re-energized, honestly. So,
I mean, your version was better than mine. I got sick after RSA. I got a pretty severe cold. Like, I think Friday I fell sick. The rest of the weekend I was pretty much drugged up on Dayquil and NyQuil. Combination of the two, and probably, other medication for like fevers and whatnot.
That's such a
And
bummer.
yeah, I've spent the whole weekend trying to rejuvenate and, get running again because, as being part of any startup, you don't have a ton of time or a lot of downtime, especially post-event when it's so valuable to follow up and to make sure that, the connections you made, can move forward.
Yep. So curious to know, because maybe you didn't, but I'm gonna assume that you had more time to like walk the show floor, talk to a lot of people. I spent most of my time like in our booth because I was managing our in booth
Yeah.
presentations. But curious to know from your perspective, were there any interesting trends, things that you saw,
Yeah.
anything that tied in with the RSA theme, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that at a high level, I'd say two things came to mind, maybe three things, but the first thing that comes to mind is relationship building was top of mind for everybody coming into RSA. I actually spoke to a couple of CISOs at the event, and one thing that they had said was, "Yeah, I'm not as this year. I'm really focused on rebuilding and meeting people, old and new, from my network again because this is the first year back." So it was kind of interesting that relationship building came up as a theme, as an experience for a lot of our attendees. And then another theme I would probably say that came up quite a bit is, I think, for me anyway, AI was the unofficial theme of RSA
Oh,
week, in my
really?
opinion. Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw it with like a lot of press releases with new product features. A lot of companies were talking about how they were incorporating GPT, which is the language model, or even Chat GPT, the app, into their
Mhm.
workflows, talking more about how they're expanding their features and functionality with AI, and having a seat at a seat at the table with the discussion in the industry. So I felt like that was an unofficial theme coming through. You'll have to let me know if you felt the same thing. I think from a talk track perspective, I know not a lot of talk tracks were focused on AI, but there was definitely AI threaded throughout conversations, through products, through booths, that at least from what I saw when I was walking the floor and talking to people.
Interesting. Okay, because I was gonna say, like, in my brief, like, paced through the South Hall anyways in the last hour of the show. I don't recall actually seeing a lot of like in your face
Mhm.
AI type of terminology, but I did see like people who are more relationship building. We are your ally, because the whole theme of RSA this year was being stronger together, right?
Mhm.
And wanting to be a partner, a good partner, and like taking care of your own tech stack, right? In addition
Yeah.
to supporting your customers. So, and then just generally the ecosystem, right? Being able to be friendly with your compadres in the vendor ecosystem. So, but yeah, I didn't actually pick up a lot of AI commentary,
Yeah.
surprisingly. So maybe it was just the fact that I was just probably running around. So
No, I think part of it is like, from an events perspective, when you're submitting for these events, let's say like the RSA talk tracks and the sessions, those CFPs,
happened
corporate
really
papers,
early.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to submit them by, I think it was November of last year, in order to get like selected for this April session. So my
That
assumption is that,
definitely
yeah,
before
that was
ChatGPT went viral. So
exactly, exactly. So, with ChatGPT going viral in November and December, and then additional expansions with all of the APIs and the plugins that have been built out over the last couple 6 months, I think
mhm,
that conversation just wasn't, or the topic wasn't top of mind for RSA attendees and, RSA in general in terms of talk tracks.
mhm.
From a product perspective, I was seeing it like left and right. Lots of people incorporating it into their workflows or their stack, and I saw that through press releases, announcements. So I was seeing a lot of that digitally that
Yeah.
companies were sharing. So yeah, it couldn't kind of seem like it wasn't there, but I felt like it was definitely an underlying sort of theme that was threaded throughout.
Cool. Well, so I guess that means we're probably going to see more of that at like other events later this year, right? Because a lot of the CFPs have either closed in the last couple of months for the events later this year. So like Black
Yeah.
Hat and some of the other smaller unconferences, right?
Mhm.
We'll probably end up seeing more talks around AI. So
Yeah.
curious to know what do you think the implications are for security, both like how we secure, what are the implications of AI and how we secure AI itself, but
Yeah.
then also how do we use it so that we can better secure our organizations.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a super packed thing. I'm going to preface this by saying that I am not an expert in AI, and I am not a security leader myself. However, just kind of getting a sense of the trends just because I've been in the space for a while, I know that the GPT technology definitely has the potential to significantly impact the future of security, right? With GPT's natural language processing capabilities, security leaders can really use it to create more efficient communications for their teams. They can accelerate incident response. They can automate workflows across multiple components of security. For example, they can, actually see in real time with alongside GPT technology, real time detection of threats and vulnerabilities, right? So a lot of these things can actually improve the speed and accuracy of security workflows, of threat detection, of response. Um, I'm trying to see. Let me think.
I think your commentary though on the communication aspect is interesting because there's definitely a lot of talk in the creator community around, well, are we just going to be out of a job because, ChatGPT can just create a blog for you, right? But like I think the other side of that coin is human ingenuity. Like you're
Mhm,
always going to have unique people and voice that
mhm.
it will take time for GPT to catch up, right? To be able
Yeah.
to communicate that stuff. So I think being able to communicate in more simple layperson language, like GPT could probably help with some of that evolution in the security
Mhm.
space. So
Yeah, I mean, for me as a marketer, I don't know if it's blasphemy to say this, but I absolutely want to embrace GPT and Chat GPT, right? AI is going to help us. It's going to continue to augment our workflows from a marketing perspective, from a security perspective, and more. I mean, the one thing that people have to remember is that you can't rely too heavily on this technology because it's still a work in progress, and it's definitely not a substitute for like human intuition and expertise, right?
correct.
So it's really important from, I mean, I'll say it from a marketer's perspective, but also from a security perspective. It's important to balance the use of GPT with the experience and insights of skilled security professionals or third party risk professionals or whatever space you're in, because
Mhm.
that is no substitute, right? We can use GPT to, augment our workflows, help us create, help us facilitate and find, those abnormalities or create patterns, that like all of this is really helping us just sift through large amounts of data in a quicker way, right? Or to give us
Yeah.
information in a quicker way. But again, it does not replace humans. Obviously, with the expansion of GPT enabled plugins and tools, like I'm not sure what those cycles are going to look like. It's just going to continue to be much more efficient and more tools will come to play. But for now, I'd say, humans are still required. You shouldn't
Oh
be
yeah.
doing the jobs, right? But it's a great way to augment your workflow. Like I know a lot of security professionals know this can be a value add. It's just can it be a value add and implemented in the right way, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like we're still humans running business, right? And there's a lot of context that happens in side conversations, in closed room conversations, that don't necessarily translate to an AI writing something for you, right? Like you
Mhm.
still have to communicate, you still have to process, you still have to adapt whatever baseline ChatGPT is able to give you to your particular company context. And I don't think that that will ever really go away because actually, one of my customers said it best in at our customer dinner at RSA. He's like, I want my team to be efficient, not stupid. And so basically, we're using technology to not replace good thinking. We're using it to augment and make us more efficient. And I think ultimately that will be the play. I think it will be interesting because, so going back to the other question that I had was how do we secure AI, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we make sure that people don't put in private information into these systems? Like, I just, we already have issues with people sharing passwords,
Mhm.
giving out corporate information where they shouldn't be in discords and stuff like that. Like, what's to stop them to start feeding it? And then, like, once you feed it in there, you're never getting it back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say concerns like that about GPT technology and even just, how the technology can be used maliciously to create more sophisticated and targeted cyber attacks, they're definitely valid. And this is definitely going to require new security measures and defense measures from organizations. And I'll preface again, this you'll have to defer to an expert on, but I think that a lot of this, at a baseline, we need to educate our users, educate, our educate our users, educate people who are using the technology, in terms of things we should or should not do as a baseline. But
Mm.
beyond that, I mean, creating policies to support, hey, it's great to use these technologies, but you have to be careful of the information that you're putting in, because information like financial information or PII, I mean, that's definitely concerning. You should never put that into any app. I mean, not any app, but obviously, like, you don't want to put this into very sensitive models that are continuously learning, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's
Or like
connected
just like
to.
a public computer, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't, if you do sign in, obviously you log back out. You make sure that there's nothing that can be cached on there. But like, it's just we're opening up another can of worms for like people who already don't know a lot about security to then stumble into issues, right? And then that's just gonna create a bad rap and boo technology and all the tech bros out there who think that they're invincible, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, that means that, from a security side, we're going to have to build in those measures to actually authenticate these things, like anything that is created by AI or, GPT, things that are like images, like content, like we have to understand where it's coming from, if it's authenticated. There's just definitely going to be a lot of parameters we have to put in place. I definitely am not an expert on this particular, piece, but I do know we're going to have to put in a ton of effort in just in addition to educating, authenticating the information that we're seeing and that's coming through.
yeah, and I think generally speaking, that's an area that a lot of people don't have skills or necessarily the drive to like fact
Yeah.
check, right,
Yeah.
and verify things, because it is a lot of it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of work to verify and make sure like what you're consuming is in fact like the real deal. Because I would say, like, for me, I can't say that I am the most informed person just because there's a lot of overwhelming news out there and there's a
Hmm.
lot of like biased perspectives out there.
Yeah.
And how do you create a well balanced view taking in all that information without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Right. And I think generally speaking, like, uh, I wouldn't say I avoid, but I just channel very specific people that I know who are well rounded in their knowledge. I
Hmm.
tend to befriend those people because I can trust them to be well rounded in their views, right? So that's probably not the best way to go about it, but it is better than being stuck in a hole and in your own little echo chamber. So
I mean, I think I'm more of the stuck in a hole type of thing where I will like double check, triple check sources and do my own research. But obviously with that comes a lot of time. So you're just going to have to be patient as solutions come to market to validate this. I could easily see like a company being created just to validate that this was an AI solution, but it was also double checked by a human being that it's accurate, right? Like if we're thinking of, where this goes down the road, it's like AI can probably end up writing like pen testing reports or full security reports and compliance reports.
mhm.
And that'll extend into, general like consumer life as well, with regular content, media, like images. So I could definitely see something coming into market to say, hey, like we have validated that this solution has been, verified by a human being and the information here is accurate, right? And like it gets like a little trusted sort of stamp.
Oh,
But no,
yay,
I'm
more stamps.
more
More
stamps. Yeah, I
more
mean,
stamps and certifications.
I mean, obviously, you could probably try to implement some sort of blockchain authentication through this too, but it's just there's so much information coming out every single second of the day, and a lot of it you'll see is probably going to be created by ChatGPT, right? And I know that there are tools out there to like tell you whether or not content has been created by AI, I think it was. So that's kind of interesting, right?
That
So
is
you,
very interesting.
yeah. I mean, we're not going to be able to hide from AI. It's going to become a natural part of our lives, and we're just going to have to make the choice in terms of, to what extent it should be involved, or, part of our workflows or our daily life.
Yeah, I mean, it better be accurate if it's making recommendations on health stuff,
Oh yeah,
right?
health stuff, security stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I really empathize with security professionals, because as ChatGPT, as the GPT technology continues to evolve, it's going to be really important for security professionals, security leaders to actually stay informed and can be adaptable to actually leverage the benefits of, this new tech, while also minimizing like any potential risks, which obviously this continues to expand that attack surface, right?
Yep.
For any malicious play, or anything. So it's definitely concerning. I
Yep.
sadly do not have the answers to it. There are smarter people than myself who probably have ideas, but at this time I'm really just trying to pay close attention to what's happening, right? And I don't know, I just feel like at the speed of which we're going, it's just going to accelerate much more. I mean, in the last 8 months, it's like they've released GPT and or Chat GPT, and then various versions, and now we've extended it to so many different APIs. Like,
Hmm.
there's no way to control this at this point. And I don't know
No,
how.
but then like you open up an interesting talking point around like security people having to basically champion and like talk about these things internally at their organizations. So they have to not only like educate, but then they also have to like advise,
Hmm.
right, on like probably what the best course of action is,
Yep.
and then get buy-in from people to actually put in the measures to like secure and move forward, minimizing risk. So it's just not an easy task, which is
Yeah.
why I think like the more people, I think one of the things I appreciate about being a marketer in cybersecurity is there's an element of my job of being also a security ambassador to the team, right? Of like, hey, like we probably shouldn't be doing this, or uh, if we are going to do this, then we probably should just double check with our security team before we go ahead and go make it live, right?
Yeah.
So like just little checks here and there, I think actually go a long ways to helping the security team out, especially being understaffed, limited resources, right? There's only so many people, and also I should say the more that people can get better at communicating and building relationships outside of security, like it helps both ways.
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah, that reminds me of, I didn't get a chance to see this panel, but I heard a lot about it at RSA, about the expanded attack surface. There was a panel of cybersecurity experts discussing the 5 most dangerous new attack techniques at RSA.
mhm.
And there were several of them, but a lot of them kind of like, I guess, circulated around the idea of using AI. For
Mhm.
example, I think one thing that I do remember was AI written malware.
Oh
So there's a lot of things happening like malvertising. So there's like
yes.
copycat sites, typo squatting, AI written malware, and ChatGPT is like kind of, aiding in some of these evolving threats. So it's actually quite interesting that, from a security perspective, now you have to pay attention to new and incoming attacks that are attacking your teams and your organization from different components, right? From malvertising,
Mhm.
copycat sites to, if your product or engineering team is using ChatGPT to write code for a product or for a website, like those things are pretty concerning. How do you navigate that, right?
Mhm.
And then obviously, using ChatGPT to create scripts to attack, or to create malware, like those things. I mean, I don't know how they're going to have a handle on it.
Yeah, I don't know either. And then on top of that, like just not having the resources to just do the basic cyber hygiene well, like that is, it's a compounding issue
It really
that
is. Yeah, it's like you have a tough enough time already with all the tools in place to take care of the basics, the foundations within your security program. And now you've got ChatGPT and AI in general becoming increasingly sophisticated
Mm-hmm.
and, adding potential misuse or additional misuse and potential attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it really does go back to education, being informed on the latest, but educating your users, educating employees, and educating your team, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I said, it's going to become a daily part of your life, and it's just to what extent.
Interesting. Well, do you see that being in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? How long do you think it becomes really part of? Because I know as a marketer, right, it's becoming pretty normal
I
to
think it's
have a
becoming,
conversation around how do we use it
yeah,
to our
I
advantage.
mean, because of the cycles and how it's changing so quickly, I would not be surprised to see every solution having something, part of it or scoped in within the next year and a half at most.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those cycles now, like I wouldn't be surprised if more and more people release like AI related things in the next 6 months because of
Mm-hmm.
everything happening. So yeah, the cycles are going to be shorter. It's going to continue to expand. It's going to be part of our ecosystem from a security standpoint, from a consumer standpoint. You know,
Well,
predictions. I
hope,
could be
yes.
wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but you never really know with these things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of time before, a significant breach happens because it was AI sourced, right? Because that'll be so interesting to hear how the news handles that, and then everybody is scared for the future for technology. So,
Yeah, if there was a breach that was sourced by, AI created code or I don't know, sourced attack, they would be interesting because at that point you kind of wonder, well, what could you have done to prevent it? And then on top of that, it's like, who is liable for those damages and
yeah,
right? So yeah, it causes a lot of other questions to, at least in my mind.
more questions than answers.
More questions than answers, yeah. So AI is obviously continuing to evolve, and what we say today will definitely change next week, and the
Mhm.
month after that. It's just the cycles are changing so quickly. It's definitely lit a fire. I feel it was kind of like Twitter coming to like news. Like I feel like Twitter really changed the game with media and social media and getting information out to consumers. With
Mhm.
AI, the hands are in the consumers to create new plugins, to use it for their prompts. Like I don't see this slowing down at all. I see it accelerating even more.
Yes, and getting more chaotic and complex before we can actually get our hands around it. So,
Yeah. So either you embrace it or you avoid it. But I don't think there's any way to avoid it. So if you're
yeah.
going to embrace it so that it helps your workflows. Like I don't see an issue with it helping me create like email copy, for example. Like
Mhm.
if it's going to be a good base for me to use it as a marketer, why not? Right? It might not get everything right. I've tested it a couple of times in terms of language and understanding. Obviously, I've used like the non-internet connected version, but with all the other plugins like GPT and I think it's Bing, like the resources can just accelerate. Like you can use it for anything and everything.
Well, there you have it, folks. You can
Yeah.
use it for anything and everything.
Yeah.
Even, to write your significant other a really heartwarming letter for, their birthday or something like that, just to show your love. Um, I think actually somebody did that. Who did it? I can't remember if it was or Kong or Sunil, but somebody on our staff did
Oh, really?
plugged, yeah, asked ChatGPT to write a love poem basically
Oh my goodness.
about something. Yeah, it was hilarious. Um, it was like a roses are red, violets are blue kind of poem,
Yeah.
I think.
Did you
So,
hear about the guy? I think a couple months ago, he's been building his entire company using ChatGPT, and he'll only do it using ChatGPT. So, everything from generating a business idea. I think his prompt was something along the lines of, "I have $100. Where can I, create a business with this?" And from there, he used ChatGPT to build a full website and
wow.
generate income and like anything. Like I think he's been documenting every step of the way as well, but pretty much I even think he's like making money off of his idea now that, came out of ChatGPT. So, I mean,
Wow.
the world is your
So that's,
oyster with ChatGPT apparently, and it can make you some money.
yeah, this is the new, because I think a lot of content creators like fled to TikTok, right, to build their careers. ChatGPT is here to make that next step for you.
I mean, it
So,
can be your producer, your writer, like your manager. I know that lots of people plug it into like Notion. My gosh, like there's so many different plugins now that you can use it for that I think would help my workflow significantly. I don't know why I'm not using it, but
well, time to get hopping on that. Now that
yeah,
you're on the other side of RSA, you should have plenty of time, right?
this is true. Are you thinking of incorporating into your sort of workflow as,
I think doing it, like having it help me build a baseline of like a blog post or
Mhm,
like just, just an initial map, right? To basically go through and be like, yeah, I think this idea is stupid. I'm going to go ahead and like revise that for
yeah.
what I have been thinking. I think the other part is like being able to refine the prompts to get to where you want it to be, to get to return the results that you want.
Mhm,
That's going to be, it's like, figuring how to best use Google search, right?
that's true.
Um, refining how you prompt it will help you yield better results. So,
Mm,
but at the end of the day, it's never going to give you a perfect first draft. That's,
yeah,
I think, the ultimate thing is, you are going to have to revise it, and therefore there will always have to be a human in the loop to
yeah,
revise it for whatever your purposes are. At
that's
least for
very
now, right? In the near future. So,
Yeah, and I think that's why people should feel comfortable with, AI and ChatGPT is that a human in the loop is still part of the process.
mhm.
Like it's an opportunity for us to refine it, to have control over the content. I mean, I don't know of any personal developers or engineers or, security practitioners that are using ChatGPT to augment their workflows directly, but it would be interesting to hear from their perspective, how they're looking to leverage it or if they are, right? Because I mean, the products that they use are certainly considering that within the cybersecurity space and extending it into the GPT model. So, I mean, I guess we'll see. Time will
Yeah.
tell at this point. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
we're only a week out of RSA, but in the coming weeks, I definitely see more changes coming that we'll hear about.
All right. So how many presentations at Black Hat are you thinking are going to talk about AI?
I mean,
What's your over under?
especially with that practitioner crowd, I mean, I would say like if they're doing it right, it should be like 50% AI. Realistically, the talk track is probably going to be like 35% AI related, but I mean, for the technical track, this is the audience to share your chops
Yes.
on AI. So, my hope is that it's going to be a pretty significant portion because obviously the attack surface and techniques are evolving quite rapidly.
Yep. It's a new hot thing,
It's a new hot
and
thing.
plenty of people are hopping on it. So,
Yeah, I mean, please, if you can do a poll, I'd be interested to see, what security engineers, security analysts are looking to do. It's like, is it top of mind for them, or are we just making this up and it's hype, right?
yeah, because we're marketers
Because
and we
we're
hear
marketers. Exactly. I mean, I
everything
think
you have heard on this podcast could probably be bogus. So,
possibly
no big
both.
deal.
Yeah, we're just lying to our audience, obviously. No, but I think continuing to get that perspective. I mean, lots of security leaders are definitely thinking about it and how to incorporate it, right? And
Mhm.
the products that they use are definitely going to be a part of that tech stack, and they're just going to have to evolve and adapt to it.
Cool. I don't know
Mm.
why this popped in my head, but those reels that are like, what is the professional way to say you are out of your effing mind? Like, I don't know why didn't think about this before, but I wonder what ChatGPT would say. What is the professional way to say this? It
It
could
did.
help you with your emails, like you
It
said earlier.
probably could. How can I be more tactful with my
Yes,
colleagues when I'm frustrated?
exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I'd be interested in tone. Like, can you add add a little snark into it, and they'd understand, or I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to try that. I will try that and see if the results are interesting. I will post it later. So
Please do.
awesome. All right, I think we are about time to wrap up. So Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Our next episode is on May 17th. Jennie, thank you for joining me on this episode. It's wonderful having you and finally able to do a podcast with you, episode with you. So, but yes, on May 17th, that's our next episode at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We will have Jason Champ from AWS, as well as our friend Jeff, who we will not name his last name, and he works at a company that we are nicknaming Bumblebee. So very hush hush in terms of who he is and where he works, but definitely show up, listen. We're going to be talking about how incentive structures and shared purpose impact digital transformation and a lot of those processes and momentum that you can build. So with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time.